All right, let's get started. So we want to learn how to draw faces. I'm going to grab, I know you guys may not have a set like this. It's fine. Just use whatever you have. I'm going to grab my HB. And I know you may not have one of these either, but, and you don't need to be perfect, but we're just going to start with a circle. And then we're going to draw a line straight down the center. I got to remind myself to take my time so you guys can keep up. But all we're doing now, we're not going to probably have time to do a detailed face, but I want to show you how to map it out. So there's certain things, like in that video I was talking about, if you measured from the corners of your nostrils a line straight up, it aligns with the inside of your eye. Or like the bottom of your nose, if you look at me, if I put this pencil across, you can see it aligns with the bottom of my ears. So when you're drawing and trying to make accurate proportions to the face, when you know all these things, or if you map these things out, it makes your drawings a little bit easier and more accurate. And obviously you can play around with it, especially if you're doing cartoons and things like that. You can play around with it with the proportions, but for realism, this is a pretty good guide, and it's kind of like a modified version of the Loomis method if you're familiar. So what we want to do now, so let's see, I think right around here, that's probably center of my circle. I want to draw another circle underneath, but the diameter is half. So I'm cheating here. I know you guys don't have this, but I think that circle is roughly half the same size. So I'm going to line that up and just draw another circle underneath. Okay, so from here, we're going to draw, instead of drawing a line straight down, we're going to draw it curved in very slightly on both sides. And right when it gets to maybe 3/4 of the way through the top of the bottom circle, that's when we kind of start to curve it in. These are all landmarks. So if you've been drawing a long time, you do this, whether you know it or not. This is how you kind of get measurements and make sure everything's accurate, right? So, okay, so now we're going to draw our first little line. So you've got the basic shape of the head. We're going to draw I always got to look at the camera to make sure it's straight. We're going to draw a line right through the center of the top circle, and I'm going to extend it way out here. You don't need to do that. That's just for notes, because you can eventually take a screenshot of this if you want. So right in the center of that one. Then we're going to cut that in half, and I'm just eyeballing this. Doesn't have to be exact. And I'm going to draw another line. So I'm cutting the bottom half of this circle in half, and I believe it's right around here. And I'm going to draw another line. And then right at the bottom of the circle, of the big circle, I'm going to draw another line across. And then we're going to cut this one in half. I think it's right around here. And this is, like I said, this is just kind of the shorter version of the Loomis method, because I don't like putting so much extra work into it. That one's a little bit high, but and then we're going to cut this one in half one more time. So I try to keep it a little bit simpler than the Loomis method, just as a guideline. Okay, so what this is going to be is the top of the eyes. You don't have to write this, but you can if you want. Sorry, the eyebrows. This is, actually, if we do one more line, we're going to cut this one in half. Sorry, I missed a step. Okay. That's the top of the eyebrows. This is the top of the eyes. This is the bottom of the eyes. And this is going to be the bottom of the nose, or the tip of your nose. This will be the top of your mouth or lips, bottom of the lips. And then your ears, we'll do that on this side, are roughly the top of your eyes to the bottom of your nose. We'll round those off. You can make them bigger or wider, however you see fit. Sharpen my pencil. Well, that one really ate it up. Okay. So the first thing I want to say about mapping your face out, if we're drawing realism, is that the width of your face is five eye widths. So if you had 5 little rectangles that we would put across right here, because this is the top of your eyes and this is the bottom of your eyes, it would be 5. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball this and see what happens. That's not even close. But you want 5 equal size rectangles. 1, 2, 3. And that's not super accurate. But I think the most important part is the distance in between your eyes is the length of one eye. So we're not going to worry too much over here, but right here in the center, this little rectangle that we just created, we want the same width. This part isn't as important, but you want this rectangle, and this rectangle to be the same size. And then if you drew a line straight down, remember, like I mentioned earlier, that's where it lines up with the outside of your nostrils. This is the inside of the eye. This is the outside of your nostrils. So right now we know we can put the tip of the nose right here. Your eyes are going to be somewhere in here, and your mouth in here. So really made a mess of my drawing down there. Okay. So now for the eyebrows, this is going to be the top of them. But we can start kind of penciling in the shape of our eyebrows. And they usually come down a little bit steeper on the outside. And you can see it's going to line up a little bit with that line for the edge of the nostrils and the nose, or in the eyes. And you can see it comes down. If you pointed it, it comes right to the center of this little rectangle here. Okay. Now these little rectangles are just placeholders to make sure, and the reason I like them is it makes sure that you keep your eyes symmetrical and roughly the same size. Some people don't have perfectly symmetrical faces. Actually, I don't think many people do at all, but it helps keep them right where they belong. So what I'm going to do, we're going to draw just our simple football shape. And it's actually going to curve in a little bit like this and then go down. That's your little tear duct. And then over here, you could add your eyelid. We'll do the same thing over here. We'll draw our little football. And then I just add that little curved, or the hump on the bottom. And then the little curved line to make the tear duct. And then I'll add my eyelid. We don't have to worry about the bottom eyelid. Okay, now a big mistake that I see a lot of people doing is they draw these little the little irises, and it ends up making your drawing or your character look like a zombie, like their eyes are all crazy. So keep in mind it's an eyeball, right? So it's a ball. Your iris is going to go. We'll say it's going to go right to the top of that eyelid. like that. And you're not always going to see how mine doesn't even touch the bottom there? You're not always going to see the entire iris. Actually, very rarely you would. Like I said, unless they're making some crazy eyes and some zombie eyes or something. And then your pupil. And then if we wanted to follow down the nose, I'll show you some basic tips for drawing the nose. Very simple. I try to keep this as easy as possible so anybody could do it and anybody could follow along. So right here, that's the bottom of the nose. We're going to draw a big circle, or kind of big. We're going to draw 3 circles, but the middle one's going to be a little bit bigger. So there's our first circle. Looks like a little clown. And then right to the edge, we're going to draw a couple smaller ones, lining up with that line, right? Because that's where the inside of the eyes meet. And then we're going to move on from the nose, and we're going to start with the lips now. And so this is the top of the lip and the bottom of the lip. Let's just keep it simple. So the edge of your lips, if you drew a line straight up, it typically is going to align with the edge of your iris. But unless you're smiling or something, then it might align with the actual pupil. But we're going to keep kind of a more neutral look. So I'm going to draw a line straight down. And obviously everybody has different faces, but these are just general guidelines to help you get your proportions right. And then we could just we'll keep it simple. We'll draw a line right across. So that's the basic start or the placement of the lips. Now, if you want to make them a little bit more realistic, we could draw this little V. Almost like a bird, it's going to come down just a little bit. And then right toward the edges, it's going to curve up. And then if you just drew a big arch over it, I went a little bit over that guideline, but that's okay. And then kind of mimicked a smaller version of that little V. That's going to be your little Cupid's bow. You can erase that. And put your little lines up towards the nose. Now underneath, here's the bottom lip. I just like to make a couple big, almost jelly beans. But I'm not worried about the outline of the lips. All I want to focus on is this little line right here. The shadow underneath the lip. And then I'll curve it. It's not going to connect all the way over here. You don't need to. And then a lot of people, some newer folks, will draw the chin right there. That's not a good idea. Maybe some people look like that, but in most cases they don't. You're going to have a little bit of a space, that little spot that the kids like to pierce. Put a line there, and that would be your chin.
Hey, I hope you're having a lot of fun and really enjoying the tutorial, but I wanted to remind you, if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you'll receive an alert every time I post a new video. And if you want to take your drawings to the next level, make sure to check out my Drawing Master course at www.iamshaneburke.com.
So now we can start adding, doing some of these tricks. So I'm just going to, for the eyebrows, I'm just going to shade them all in. This is still with my HB pencil. Just so you can see a little bit more about what we're doing. Now for the eyes, I'm going to use that same pencil. Actually, yeah, let's use the same pencil. I'm going to put a tiny little circle right here. The light source is coming from up here. So I'm going to put a little highlight right there, and opposite that, you're going to have a little highlight right here too. It's going to be darker. It's not going to be as light as this little highlight, but it'll be a little bit lighter. And we could shade all of this in. Try not to do it too dark. And this is kind of a small drawing, so I'm not going to be able to put a ton of detail into it because I want you to be able to map out the entire face. But I'm going to use my little blending stuff. This is a little tiny guy. These little, this is my blending kit. I've got tissue and all sorts of different types and sizes of these. But these little guys, they come in probably like a 10 pack or maybe $8 of different sizes. So what I'm going to do is just blend that together. And then even that little highlight we did on the bottom, I want lighter, but not white. And then I'm going to grab my blending stump and I'm going to blend those eyebrows. And then with that same graphite that I just blended this with, I'm going to blend a little bit underneath the eyes. And you can see right here, right underneath, there's usually a lighter spot there. Do that on both sides. Now, you could have erased your guidelines if you want, but I'm not worried about it. This is just a quick little sketch. But see, I'm leaving it light right there. I'll go over the eyelids. And this, in a second here, you're going to realize why we need these different pencil types. Okay, now I'm going to go back to my pencil set. Where did I put it? And I'm going to go to a really dark pencil. This is a 6B. Actually, I'm not going to go that dark because I want to make sure. I'm going to go to a 5B with a really sharp point, especially because this is really, it's kind of a small drawing, smaller than I usually do at least. I'm going to show you why you need these different pencils. So that looks pretty dark already, but when you use a different one, this is a 5B, we're going to draw the shadow. That light was shining on it a little bit too much. I'm going to draw the shadow on top of underneath the eyelid. And then we'll draw our pupil, but remember to leave that little highlight right there. And I'm going to just kind of shade it. It's going to be darker up top and just shade to lighter and lighter down the eye. And then maybe this guy's got blue or green eyes or something. So I'm going to outline it just a little bit. Have it darker, like I said, up top and lighter down here. And you could see with just this pencil, we already had all of our gray and it looked really dark and messy, but it's not very dark in comparison to a pencil that is dark, like a 5B. I'm just going to darken up the top now. Do a dark eye outline of the eyelid, and then we'll do the same thing over here. We're going to draw in that pupil, except for the little highlight. Draw our shadow from the eyelid. And then outline it. Darker up top, thinner and lighter down towards the bottom. And it's almost magic. You see how that eye looks transparent or looks like it's almost glowing. You can really tell and see the light source. It's almost like magic. These little, I get excited, especially on eyes, because these little tips make a huge difference. And then we'll draw the outline of the eyelid. I went a little bit too far over. Should be coming down a little bit more. And then now, I just draw these little M shapes for the eyebrows. And if it was a larger drawing, I would put more detail into this, but this is only probably like 6 or 8 inches the entire head. Okay, now let me show you a little trick for the nose, and then hopefully we get the lips done. So we've already got our outline done. I'm going to use a dirty blending stump, or maybe I'll use this one's kind of dirty. I'm just going to outline those circles. Up on the sides. And then even in between here, it's going to have a little bit of a shadow. Matter of fact, let's just do this whole thing. Looks silly, right? It'll make sense. I'm going to go back to that really dark pencil. What was it, a 6B? I think I had a 5B. Yeah, here it is. Now here's the trick. It looks really dark and and messed up and doesn't look very good at all. But what we're gonna do, draw a little parentheses here. That's the outside of the nostrils. And you can see because this 5B is so much darker, it doesn't, now this part of the face doesn't look as dark. Those are midtones. And right here, draw a dark line underneath. And then kind of this number 9. I'll do it again over here, or a 9 and a P, sorry. But you get the point. And then you can shade that in. And it already looks like a much more realistic nose, but once you get to this little highlight right here, your exclamation point, look how cool that is. Very simple. And then now if you just I like to grab the edge of the nostrils and just kind of pull up that shading. And then even right here, remember where that original circle was? I'm going to pull some shading up there too. It's very subtle and difficult to see, but these little subtle details make a big difference. Then you can grab your graphite from the eyebrows, bring that down. And all of a sudden, it doesn't take very long. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of practice, but it doesn't take very long. You can create a pretty realistic drawing of a nose. I'm going to shade a little bit on the bottom side as well. And then one more cool little trick. I'm going to erase some of these guidelines. You are the best instructor with eyes. Thanks, Jeanette. Now we're just going to grab our dirty blending stump and draw the shadow underneath the nose. And look how cool and realistic that looks. In my course, I always talk about you should have no white on your paper because you can't draw white. So even if there is white in your drawing, you have to have some sort of a midtone down so you can actually see the white highlight. So in this case, I always shade a little bit and then I'll erase because you only want the brightest highlight. So white on your drawing, if you're into photography, when you adjust the levels and the exposure, you want maybe the really brightest, like almost overexposed spots to be maybe 5 or 10% of the drawing, so or of your image. So that's what I kind of try to do. All right, now last tip for the lips is our light source is up above, and if you look at your lips, like mine doesn't, you can't really tell in the video, but the top lips are generally going to be darker than your bottom lips. This is a HB pencil, by the way. And to keep it simple, we're just going to shade all that in, blend it out, or smooth it out with our blending stump. And the way the light hits your lip, I know you kind of think that it's pointing out, that your lip isn't pointing out. Your upper lip would be in the light, but your lip, where it actually creases towards the inside of your mouth or where your lips meet, that's actually pointed in. So it's going to be hidden from the light. And then we could get, I'm going to grab my HB pencil. I'm not even going to use any pencil here. I'm going to use a graphite that I used for this and mostly just shade on the bottom. And I like to have that little that little crease. Actually, let's just do it all. But it's, you want it to be lighter than the top lip. And then I like to just draw these little lines like that. And a little bit of shading underneath. And I'm a portrait artist, so I've done this so many times that that I kind of know the way the light hits it based on the light source and kind of how the face comes together just out of habit, because I've done it so many times. I realize that you guys may not, you're it's going to take practice. And I know this looks like a beard to you, but it's not a beard. It's just actual shading. Like right here, is usually it creates this little kind of a triangle shape where this is your highlight. Like I said, I'm just using a dirty blending stump to do that. You use a cotton ball or a cotton swab, whatever you've got, or tissue. Okay, so now the lips look a little funny and a little dark. That's because we didn't use our dark pencil to actually make the difference. So we're going to go kind of down till we're just going to draw the crease in between the lips where the lips meet. The silhouette of the lips or the outline of the lips is, in my opinion, the least important. This little line here where the lips meet, that's the most important part. And then we can draw a really dark line here for the shadow. And then you could go back with your eraser. If you've got one of these little fine tip erasers, this might be too small for me to hit up, but you can erase a couple little highlights. And then right here, see where the top of the lips kind of curve down? Just make the little cupid's bow. It's all about letting the tools do the work for you. There's not a lot to the under eyes there, but let them use them to your advantage. And it makes drawing a lot easier. Like I said, the top of the eyebrows or the top of the eyes align with the top of your ears. The bottom of your nose aligns with the bottom of your ears. The corners of your mouth aligns with your pupils or your irises. Your nostrils line up with the inside of your inside of your eyes. And there's all sorts of there's a lot more to it. But if you use those basic guidelines, it makes drawing realistic faces a little bit easier.